In this lesson, we're going to go over how to create a frequency polygon and a cumulative frequency polygon, or ogive, using Excel. So here we have a set of data, and we're going to look at the weight column here. These represent the weights of some bears that were weighed. We have 54 values here, and we're going to construct a frequency polygon for these weights. Now over here we have a frequency table constructed for the weight column. Notice that we have the classes from 0 to 49, 50 to 99, and so on down to 500 to 549. And we have 6 bears that had weights between 0 and 49, 10 bears had weights between 50 and 99, and so on down to 1 bear having a weight between 500 and 549. So we're going to construct a frequency polygon for this frequency table. So let's first take these frequencies, and we're going to copy them somewhere in our data sheet so it's a little easier to work with them. So we're going to copy them and just paste them somewhere. Now we're going to paste by values. Notice I click on the 1, 2, 3 right here because those numbers, the frequencies, came from a formula, and we're going to have to paste the numbers. We don't want the formulas pasted, we want the actual numbers. So we're going to paste the values. So you'd click on that 1, 2, 3 clipboard there. There are the frequencies. Now we're going to, for a frequency polygon, we want the midpoint of each class to go along with a particular frequency. Now the midpoint for the first class here is about 25. It's actually 24.5, but we're just going to round that to 25. For the second class, our midpoint there is about 75, 125, and so on down to 525. So we're going to create a column of values right here representing the class midpoints. And we'll put a 75 right here. That's the second class midpoint. We'll highlight those two and grab the fill handle and drag downward, and that'll fill in all the rest of the class midpoints automatically. Now we're going to put a 0 right before the 6 and a 0 right after the 1. That way our frequency polygon will drop down to the x-axis at the ends. And let's also put a 0 right before the 25, and we'll put a 550 right after the 525. That's the very first lower limit and the very last upper limit. And now let's highlight all of these values here, all of the frequencies including the zeros at the beginning and end, and then we'll go Insert, and we're going to insert a 2D line chart like this. Choose this one, and there we go. We have a frequency polygon here now. We can clean it up a little bit. Notice the x-axis doesn't have the values that we want. It has values 1 to 13. We would prefer the 0 to 550. So let's select our chart, go up to Design, that's already selected here. Let's click on Select Data, and we're going to change the horizontal x-axis labels. So we'll click Edit, highlight these values right here, OK, and click OK again. And there you go, we have a very nice frequency polygon. Notice that we have heights here, 25, we have a height of 6 right there, so that's representing 6 bears in the very first class. 75, we have a height here of 10, that represents 10 bears in the second class, and so on. So very nice frequency polygon. We can add a chart title if we want. We can also add X and Y axis labels. And we could do those by clicking on the Add Chart Elements over here. Axis titles if we like, horizontal and vertical. And then we could add names. So this one would be the bear weights. And this one over here would just be the frequencies. Alright, so that's how you can create a frequency polygon. You can also create a relative frequency polygon in the same way, except you would use the percents. We have the percent column right here. And in place of the 6 through 1 right here, you could simply put your percents. In fact, we can do that right now. We could just go copy those, paste them right here. And we could have, I deleted the chart, I could have actually left that there and just, it would have automatically adjusted it for us. Insert. And there we have, now you see the y-axis here represents percents instead of actual frequencies. So these are the relative frequencies over here for each class. We can also create an ogive or cumulative frequency polygon. Now right here we have the cumulative frequencies. Notice the 6 is the very first class frequency. The 16 is 6 plus 10. The 26 is 6 plus 10 plus 10. The sum of the first 3 classes. The 33 is the sum of the first 4 classes, and so on, all the way down to 54. We have a total of 54 bears. So that 54 is the sum of all of these frequencies right here. Now we'll do basically the same thing. Let's copy those, paste them somewhere in our chart, paste the values like we did before. Now aside of these values, we can put the upper class limits. Now actually it's a little nicer to put the lower class limits, you see, because they're just nicer numbers, 50, 100, 150, instead of 49, 99, 149, and so on. So we're just going to put them, we're going to do this, 50, 100, and then just drag that down, like that. And we also want to start at 0 and 0. So that way our cumulative frequency polygon will start on the x-axis. So now all we have to do is highlight these values here, select Insert, a 2D line chart right here, and there we go, we have our cumulative frequency polygon, or an ogive. And now we can edit the x-axis here. So we will click on our chart somewhere, Design, select Data, and we'll edit the x-axis values. So Edit, and we want these values right here, so highlight those, hit OK, OK again, and you see now we have the x-axis labels along the x-axis that we want. Notice we start out at 0, and by the time we reach a weight of 50, we have accumulated 6 bears. And by the time we get to 100, from 0 to 100, we have accumulated 16 bears, from 0 to weighing anywhere from 0 to 100, and so on. We could also do this with percents. It's actually a little nicer to do this with cumulative percents instead of the actual numbers. It gives you a little better idea of the relative percent of data values that are less than a particular value on the x-axis. So we could actually just replace all of these numbers right here with the cumulative percents right here. So we can just take these numbers, copy them, and then just paste the values right there. And you see our chart actually adjusted automatically. So you see now we have percents along the y-axis instead of cumulative frequencies. That's sort of nice because now we can see if we look, for example, at 300. If we go up here, we see about 80%, the way we read this is 80% of all the bears had weights less than 300 pounds. If we look at the 200 here, we see that about 61% of all the bears had weights less than 200 pounds, and so on. And of course up here at 550 we see 100% of our bears had weights less than 550, or all of them had weights less than 550. So it's nice to use the cumulative percents. And remember, the way we obtain these numbers right here, these percents, is click on F2. All we did is take the cumulative frequencies and divide by 54, which is the total number of scores that we have in this data set. So we just take the 6, divide by 54, multiply by 100. That'll give us the percent. So 11%. And then if we do this in Excel, we can just type in, notice this formula right here, equals Q2, 6 is in the cell Q2, divided by 54, multiply by 100, and then you can just take that and drag it down, and it will fill in all the rest of the values for you. Okay, so that concludes our discussion about creating frequency polygons and cumulative frequency polygons, or ogives.